you're in this, actually. Hello, Bronx friends and neighbors, and welcome to Bronx Talk. Tonight's guest is the state senator from the 33rd Senatorial District in the Bronx, which includes the Bronx neighborhoods of Fordham, Belmont, Riverdale, Kingsbridge Heights, Norwood, Bedford Park, Pelham Parkway, Van Ness, Morris Park, and parts of Allerton. We have plenty to discuss with him, including politics, the state budget, healthcare, local district issues, and a lot more. Please join me in welcoming back to Bronx Talk, Senator Gustavo Rivera. Always nice to have you.
Pleasure to see you. Did you say our guest tonight?
Well, you know, I get confused because the show has always been in the at night, but now we've been live in the morning. So see, and he caught me already. And I
then
did
you know
this,
it's live. It's live.
I did this the last time you were on the show, and so I made a list of all your appearances. So this is number 23.
23.
And rather than repeat what we did last time, I did a little summary. You debated here 4 times.
Okay.
You remember the one when Fernando Cabrera was a no-show and we had an empty seat?
That seat, that chair, was one of the toughest opponents I've ever had.
And now let's see. You appeared with other guests, with former Assemblymember Victor Pichardo 4 different times.
Really?
With Jeff Dinowitz 2 times.
Oh, I'm sure he loved those
Love
times.
that. I'm sure you did too. And then individually, you were with Michael Blake, with Elliot Engel, with Robert Jackson, with John Liu, and then with your colleague Natalia Fernandez. So there you go, 23 appearances.
Got 2 more to go to the 25.
You
give me an award when I get to 25, like a little trophy, a little one.
We'll give you the cup.
25.
You told me just as you sat down that you've been happy, which I know for you because you always want to get the best. What is making you happy?
I started to tell you, and you said save it for air, so I'll tell you now. The first 6 months of last year were some of the toughest that I've ever had as an elected official. And the reason for that was because of everything that was compounding on top of each other. You had all of the attacks from the federal government, which are real and are impacting people on the ground every single day. Things that were happening at the state level that I had big issues with that had nothing to do with the federal government. Many of my colleagues, unfortunately, who were still acting like we're not in the battle that we're actually in, as in a battle for basic tenets of democracy. And Andrew Cuomo was trying to make a comeback. All of those things happening in the first 6 months of last year, I was really questioning whether this is something that I could actually do for much longer.
Wow.
Sincerely. Sincerely.
And I will say that your first program here was 2010.
Yes, no, I've been here for a while.
So we're talking 16 years.
Been here for a while. But the last 6 months of last year, and certainly this year as well, with all of the issues, and there's a lot of things that we can discuss that have been that are challenging or troublesome, but the fact is that I feel a certain level of hope that I haven't felt in a long time, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that voters have been choosing people and folks all over the country that are actually concerned really for working class folks and are actually fighting for them. And many of them are going to be my colleagues next year in the state legislature. Some new members are going to Congress that are going to give the orange madman the what for. So I feel a lot of hope that I didn't necessarily feel the first 6 months of last year.
Well, that's encouraging to hear because usually you come here banging your fist on it.
Oh, I'm going to bang my fist. I'm going to smack the table a couple of times
too. You brought it up. Let's start with the June primary. All the incumbents were either reelected or unchallenged, like I think you were this time. Other than Congressmember Adriano Espaillat, who lost to Daria-Liza Avila Chevalier. Your thoughts on the fact that that was the one seat that got overturned? I think,
well, I will say, you know, Adriano has served for a long time, both in the Assembly and the Senate and Congress, and certainly I thank him for his service. But I think the voters had a clear mandate that they wanted some new energy, that they needed someone who they felt better address their concerns, and Daria-Liza gave that message. Now, she is brand new. She has not served in government before, but I've been building with her certainly during the campaign, but after she won the primary, she is still the Democratic nominee. She is very much going to win in November, as we know this is a Democratic district. And we are already doing work with her. My team and hers are doing work together to make sure that she hits the ground running. There is a clear understanding. I think that there's something that needs to be understood here. It's the thing about a lot of these newer folks who have gotten elected in the last couple of years, and I would include Zoran in this category, are folks that people might accuse of someone that has little experience in government, therefore they're not going to know what to do when they get there. But I think that what Zoran has demonstrated, and I believe that Elisa will demonstrate the same thing, is that they both understand that the campaign is one thing, but governing is another, and that you have to be an effective an effective person once you get into governing. Like, winning is one thing, but getting there and actually governing is the tougher part. I think both of them understand that. Obviously, that Elisa has a different road to climb because she is a legislator. She's going to D.C. She's going to be spending a lot of time down there. They might be in the majority, but maybe in the minority. So there's a lot of things.
And seniority is a big thing, of
Correct.
course, in Congress, and so she'll have to literally
She'll have to
work it.
climb that, but I do think this. I need to underline this. The energy that's there is there's an understanding that what's coming up is the tougher bit, and I could see it in her face that she's raring to go.
I asked some of your colleagues, some of your state Senate colleagues, this question, and I'm very big on it, frankly. What's the difference between the philosophies of the Democratic Party regulars, some of the incumbents, and the DSA? You both believe in affordable housing, in strengthening public safety, and improving our schools, and greater economic opportunities in the environment, and certainly supporting our immigrants. And then yet there's this big split in the Democratic Party, both locally and nationally, over like, oh, they're DSA. And aren't you all really thinking the same thing?
The schism has to do with power. Let's just be clear about it. The reality is that the difference is that I believe that there is we are, for example, when it talks about DSA, I'm not a DSA member, but we are absolutely aligned.
I was going to ask you about that. We'll get to it in a moment.
Yeah, but we're absolutely aligned on so many things, on taxation, on criminal justice, on health care, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Immigration, environment.
Correct. But I think the main distinction, if we're going to really get down to it, is that folks who are many, and I'm not going to say across the board, but they are very, very much, particularly those folks who have been enshrined in power for a long time, are more concerned with keeping it than actually doing something with it. That is the difference. That if you can say, as I believe that the Democratic Party can say a lot of things about working class people, how they want to change people's conditions, et cetera, but if voters don't actually see them doing those things, and instead see them just trying to figure out how they can hang on to the seat that they have, then they're going to vote them out. And I think that is the main distinction.
So then your contention is that it's a matter of, well, I better not go there because if I say that, it won't get me reelected.
I think
that kind of
certainly, and I
state
think,
of mind.
look, I think we have to be willing to fight. When we're saying, for example, let's talk about healthcare, right? We know we're going to get that into that eventually.
We're going to talk about that.
As the chair of the Health Committee, I believe that the New York Health Act is necessary. That would guarantee healthcare to every single New Yorker by creating a single-payer system in the state of New York. Is it politically difficult and very complicated? Yes, but it is something that our people need. So I am willing to fight for it, even if there are people who would be my allies right now, or people who would potentially give me money that would not be in agreement with it. And I said, I believe that every New Yorker needs health care because health care is a right. I want to change policy to make that a reality. And I'm willing to tell voters, I am willing to lose my seat. I am willing to have less money in my bank account for my campaign. I am willing to have people in government who don't support me because I fight for you. And I think that is the main distinction. Yes. And I believe that many of the DSA folks, that's how they're approaching it.
The Times took a look at it and said that it's a generational shift.
There's that too.
You believe in that?
Absolutely.
And so are you?
As one of the olds, yes.
As it turns out. Are you optimistic about the midterms for Democrats, or is it still a challenge? Because we see what's going on, it's hard to assess the whole package.
I am fairly optimistic about where we're going to land. The issue, and this is the challenge that I would throw specifically to two people who are in New York and who I respect, whether it's Hakeem Jeffries or Chuck Schumer. Both of them have an opportunity, depending on what happens in November. They might go into a majority next year. I would challenge both of them. Let's actually push for real change. Let's actually fight for real policy. Let's not believe that these folks who are winning should be dismissed because sometimes it's like, well, they're Democrats, so they're just going to sit in line and they're going to wait for me to decide what to do. Get them into the leadership conversations, into the policy conversations, fight for real things so that we can keep that majority. Because when we get it, we have to do something with it.
It's impressive that you speak that way. Why didn't you put the initials DSA next to your name?
I just don't feel that it's. I mean, I've been basically, as you mentioned, I have been coming here for quite a long time. If you go to this first one right here, I'm going to be skinnier, certainly, but I think I'm going to be saying basically the exact same thing that I'm saying right now. I have not changed my tune as far as the things that I believe in, as far as the things that I fight for, or that I will continue to fight for. I have been able to achieve some of them. I'm still in elected office because I believe I still have some legislative things to do. I'm not going to be here forever. I want to make sure that I recognize when I need to pass the torch, which unfortunately many of my colleagues don't realize, and this is why they go down in flames. I still have some work to do. I am going to continue to tell my constituents, send me back there so I can continue fighting for these things. So it's like I don't necessarily feel that I need to be a member of the organization. I'm very aligned with them, and I'm looking forward to many of them becoming colleagues in just a few months.
All right, you brought it up first, but I was going to bring it up. Let's talk about the New York Health Act.
Yes.
We probably have been talking about it for as long as you've been doing.
Not all the way back
quite.
to when I get started here, but certainly a couple of years.
Yeah. Let's see. It passed the Assembly in '92 and 2015 and 2018,
Yeah.
but has not passed the Senate. I saw quotes from you. You said you think this is the year the New York Health Act will finally pass. What makes you say that?
Let's imagine a world in which Donald Trump didn't exist. Isn't it a wonderful world? Isn't it a great world? It's a beautiful world.
Don't test me.
It's a beautiful world. But in that world where Donald Trump doesn't exist, people still go broke because they get sick. That is the obscenity of the current system that we're in, and it's only made worse by the attacks of the federal government. So I believe that the crisis that already existed, a system that was built not around the benefit of individual citizens or the health of individual citizens, but the profit margin, particularly of insurance companies. So we needed to break that before Trump got here. But the fact that Trump got here made the system so much worse, and the attacks that are happening are going to make the system so much more brittle that I believe that now is the time to strike. I don't agree with this gentleman who used to be the mayor of Chicago, also chief of staff for Obama.
I know who you mean.
This guy, I don't agree with him on much, but one of the things that he did say is we should not waste a crisis. So we are in the middle of a crisis, and I believe that bold solutions are necessary for the crisis that we're in. And that bold solution is one that is actually not that far-fetched. Guaranteeing health care to everybody, making sure that we take insurance companies out of the picture, focus on the health care of individuals, have all of us be in the same system, not one for you, another one for me. And it means that we spend less money and we have better health care for everybody.
You make a very good sale, but why didn't
Rahm Emanuel, that's his name.
Rahm Emanuel, that's correct. Why didn't it pass in the Senate? Why has it? And the Senate now, of course, has the majority. Mm-hmm. And based on what I had said earlier, Democrats generally are for this concept. Why hasn't it passed?
Because the reality is that the way that we've always worked in the Senate majority is that we have to build a consensus, and the consensus is not yet there. I have to get most of my colleagues. If I'm the only person in the room, or there's a couple of other people joining me in the room that says 3 or 5 or 6 of us, there's 42 members of the Senate majority right now. We might be 43 next year or maybe more, but whatever. We're 42 of us. 34 of them are sponsors of the New York Health Act. So that's certainly the majority. There's a difference between being a sponsor and being a champion of it. And there needs to be a consensus. That's number one. There needs to be a push for it to be included and for it to happen. But second, and this is the problematic part, this year in particular there was a frustrating thing. Remember when I said that I was going to smack the table? So this is the table smacking moment.
Okay.
This year was particularly frustrating because the governor dragged on the budget for so long that it meant that we only had 2 weeks to do the legislative activity that we'd usually do in 3 months. And the fact is that something as complicated and as revolutionary as this, as saying that we're going to be the first state in the nation to guarantee health care for everybody and transform the system, and is a big, big, difficult thing to do. How am I going to convince people about that in 2 weeks' time when we have so much other things to do, plus the governor sending us her nominations and everything else? We need more legislative time, right? So, but I believe the difference is, number one, we're going to have a lot of new colleagues next year. I've had colleagues over the years who sadly have run on the New York Health Act, but then have been quiet about it when they come into his office.
I was just
It's a
gonna
reality.
ask you.
And some of them have moved on. Some of them have been unelected. Some of them have, are still there.
So this goes back to what you said, that now we're in crisis. The
Yep.
essential plan, the generous health plan for working class people, was hit hard. More than 400,000 people are now looking for coverage because they didn't have it. Do you think that sense of panic will nudge some of the people who have been, let's say, on the fence?
I believe so, because it has to become, the thing is, it has to become a political liability not to be a champion for this. That's what it needs to be. When, a couple of years ago, and I'll try to be quick about it, the thing that I remember the most, do you remember the Excluded Workers Fund? During 2020, in the middle of the pandemic, obviously a lot of folks who were not working, but were undocumented, did not have unemployment insurance, obviously because they were undocumented. So there was this crazy notion that we would create a state-only dollars program to provide workers from excluded workers. These were folks who were undocumented, did not have access to funds from the federal government, that we would provide some assistance for them. This was like, how is this going to be a reality? Within a couple of months during the budget of that year, and still under Cuomo, there was such big political pressure that was mounted and such organizing that it actually happened in 2020. That's my point.
So
it needs to become a political necessity to make the New York Health Act a reality.
So maybe the desperation of the people who have lost their
Precisely.
health.
And if you have constituents calling their electeds, telling them, if we're talking about affordability, what is one of the number one things that people, after housing? The issues of healthcare. So let's actually deal with affordability in a real way.
You mentioned the state budget. It was late again. The biggest criticism is the imposition.
Too late. It was way too late.
The imposition of policy in the dialogue rather than just fiscal decisions. Is that the problem, or was it really the problem of, let's say, they just couldn't come to agreement? You put your finger on it. To make a long and complicated story very short, currently in the state of New York, because of a decision that happened over 20 years ago called Silba B. Pataki from the Court of Appeals of the state of New York, the governor has an incredible level of power during the budget process. And the incredible level of power extends to saying, I'm going to include things in the budget that have no fiscal impact, but I'm still going to include it on there. And we as a legislature don't get to pull it out. We get to say yes or no, and that's it. The governor has an enormous and inordinate amount of power. I believe that we need to change that, and we need to change the Constitution to do it. That's another conversation. That's a much larger conversation.
That's a larger conversation, but the bottom line is that what happened was that the governor, she saw that this is obviously something that benefits her, because if she stalls as long as possible, then we don't have time at the end of session to put anything challenging on her desk, because we can't barely vote on anything.
So what was the cost of it being late? There was still a number of victories. I mean, $2.2 billion for affordable child care, funding for anti-violence initiatives.
Well,
I mean, these were all positive
well, certainly,
things.
But the things that held up, and I'll repeat again, the budget is about fiscal matters. That is what it should be about. And I have no problem having enormous conversations about that, and we do, and we should. They should be done by April. And we can have that because the budget the governor presents a budget the second or third week of January, right? She does her State of the State. A few weeks later, she says, this is how I'm going to pay for the State of the State, and this is my budget. We have public hearings, we have conversations, et cetera, and we should be done. And the fact is that we were close to done. Matter of fact, there was an interview that I gave. It was the funniest thing, because I was so naive. 2 weeks before we were done.
Still naive, huh?
David Lombardo. Sometimes it happens. David Lombardo up in Albany. I did an interview with him, and I said, 2 weeks, I think we're going to be done very much around April 1st. I really thought so, because most of the issues were popped up. And then, out of the blue, the governor said, oh, we haven't talked about this at all. I'm going to include this now. And she just kept including things in the conversation that shouldn't have been.
You were not a fan of Andrew Cuomo. You've addressed that.
What are you talking about? He's my favorite.
Are you a fan of?
I don't know if you did the close. You should have done.
Are you a fan of Governor Hochul?
I've had issues with Governor Hochul. She's not. Let me be clear. She's not Andrew Cuomo. She's not a sociopath, which is a great thing. But I think that I have some issues with some of the things that she has done, and sometimes I've been an ally to her, and sometimes I've worked with her, and sometimes I haven't. It's a back and forth, but certainly she is not a sociopath like Andrew Cuomo.
All right, let's talk local. The biggest news that I could pull out that you've been involved in is this Fordham Road realignment.
Yep.
offset bus lanes, redesign of Fordham Road. What do you think?
I'm supportive of it. I've always
You were
been,
there for the ribbon
I was there for the. Not only was I there for the ribbon cutting. I don't know if there was a moment when just a dude that was just walking down the street added himself to the conversation and just started talking during the press conference. And I was telling him, we're doing this for you, dude. We're doing this so that you can get across Fordham Road quicker. I'm a supporter of it because most of the people that use Fordham Road every single day. We're talking about folks trying to get to work, trying to get trying to go shopping, etc. They should be able to be in a vehicle that moves quicker than them walking on the sidewalk.
Well,
so that's what we want to do.
My experience, I mean, I'm the part of the Bronx I live in, and you're familiar with Bailey Avenue, and
Yes.
they redesigned it. They eliminated so many of the lanes that even, like if a bus is, dropping off passengers, you got to go into, the opposite lane to get around them, and the traffic backs up. Are you worried that that's going to happen in Fordham?
I think that there certainly will be
with
some
the narrowing of the lanes.
there will be some impacts on it, but I do think that the people that know far more about this than I do, folks that are engineers of transportation, have thought about this much more than I have. And the bottom line is, if we get the bus moving more quickly, we should do everything in our power to encourage people to use mass transit. It is to discourage people. Some people need cars, but not everybody does. And everything that we can do to invest in a system that is more efficient, that is more effective, that is cleaner, that is more accessible for most people, that's what I believe we need to do. And this is that. This is prioritizing people who use public transit, and prioritizing that type of transportation as opposed to cars. So it does create a little bit of a pressure. But I do think ultimately it'll be a positive, and it'll get the buses moving across more quickly.
With unnecessarily mentioning his name, but Councilmember Felice was very concerned that, okay, you've done this, but there's many other things that you could have done. Paving the roads, improving street signs for pedestrians, a greenification of medians. And he said, well, if you're going to do this, why not do it all at once and make that happen? Is that frustrating to you that it didn't happen?
No, it's not. Well, it's not frustrating to me. I think I am yes and. I'm a yes and kind of guy. Meaning yes and. It's like we can do this and we can do that too. If we can identify funding for it, then certainly we should try to do these things. There was Councilmember Felice and I have disagreed on this issue for a couple of years. He was opposed to the expansion of the busway and the changes, and there was a resistance that he had. There were a couple of things that he suggested that were put into effect but did not have an impact, a positive impact, and ultimately there was a redesign. The original design that was proposed was not the one that actually made it, that's actually being implemented now. I believe the one that's implemented now, it's going to have a positive impact. And we can, as far as green spaces and any other thing that he mentioned, I certainly would want to work with him to make sure that we can do those things, but it doesn't mean that we have to stall on this, which has for a long time made it so that people that use mass transit have to just, again, sit in traffic endlessly from one side of the Bronx to another.
I've got to ask you about this, the immigration situation.
Yeah.
What do you hear from constituents? People are absolutely frightened. I've seen very lately ICE has had a greater presence in New York City than it has before.
It definitely has.
What are your thoughts on that?
First of all, I would say to people that we need to be educated about how do we defend our neighbors. For those of us that are privileged enough to be citizens, to be, we need to make sure that we protect our neighbors who aren't. There are different ways that we can communicate. I wish I had the number in front of me. There's a number that we can call if ICE is spotted. There's a lot of things that ICE is doing around the city, which they're just basically plucking people off of street corners. Just yesterday, there was somebody who was taken out of a car while they were driving it, and then the car was left in the middle of the road while the ICE just put someone in a truck and drove away with them. And the rest of the neighborhood just had to do with that, the NYPD as well. Like the car was just left in the middle of the sidewalk, in the middle of the road. I believe that we need to educate ourselves, that we need to make sure that we protect our neighbors. My office has done a lot of work around this over the last couple of months. We've actually handed out thousands of Know Your Rights cards. We've done Know Your Rights trainings. We're constantly communicating in different modes to be able to, if there's sightings, if they're credible, that we identify them, etc. So we're trying to do all these things.
And you also, your office, of course, also has advice and numbers and everything.
Yes.
A couple of things before we run out.
Yeah.
You know the importance of what we do here on BronxNet Television,
Yes,
and
sir.
the importance of BronxNet Television. Public access across the nation and the state has been under siege. I guess the people at BronxNet and I guess the general public would want to know, would you do everything you can to keep nonprofit media like BronxNet thriving for local
Certainly.
communities?
Yes.
I mean,
we just had a sad state of affairs just locally. A local newspaper, the Norwood News, is going to stop publication if probably this is the last week.
Print publication, they're still talking
right,
about
and so
digital.
I'm glad that there's going to continue to be some sort of presence online, but these type of publications are essential to maintaining people educated about what's happening locally.
And having the conversations like this.
Indeed.
So let's see, you had the backpack giveaway, which was a big success.
We did. It was a big one. It was a big one.
There is one tonight.
And by the way, Daria Lisa Avila Chevalier
Was there.
on last week. It was Thursday, I think it was. It was a big one. It was a couple of hundred folks. It was great.
And we have one, let's see, there's one tonight, Washington Park, and
Yes.
then Poe Park on Thursday.
Yes, and folks should just call 718-933-2034 for my office. Oh, actually, the thing is there. Yes,
It's all
just
there.
just call my office, and we'll tell you all the different back-to-school pop-up
And
giveaways that we're
these
doing.
are great for the kids, right? I mean, the
We
kids
give-
love it, and the need is there.
Yeah.
It makes them, you're endorsing their education. I mean,
Yeah, we give them backpacks, we give them resources, we connect them with different community organizations that provide services to their parents, all sorts of things. So they're always really fun.
Senator, can we assume there will be a 24th appearance on Bronx Talk sometime?
I'm working up to my 25th. I'm looking for that little trophy, about this big, nothing bigger, just like this. But yes, there'll be a 24th
we'll
and
see what we
25th.
can do.
After that, we're done though.
Thank you so much, and because the conversation is very, very enjoyable because you don't mince words and you don't compromise, and I as a Bronx boy, I respect it. Thank you so much.
Pleasure to see you.
Senator Rivera, and that will conclude our program. We want to thank all our people. We want to thank our producer, Leticia Carrion, also to our BronxNet production and editing team, and of course to you too. He knows it. It's always about the people of the Bronx. We'll see you next week. Good night. Good day. Whatever it is.